Are we doing this? All right, give me 1 minute, hold on. Hey, what's up guys? My name is Dylan Hennessy and today I'm going to be ranking my guitar collection in order from worst to best. A quick background on myself, I'm a Toronto-based musician that's been playing for roughly the last 20 years, which has seen me just start from my bedroom up until going through college for music and then playing many venues across my city and even some in other parts of the world. I've also worked for the last 3 years at Long & McQuaid, which is kind of like the Canadian equivalent of Guitar Center. And needless to say, and especially in the last few years, I've amassed a small collection of instruments. I thought rather than just showing them to you, it would be more fun to actually build a marking sheet and kind of go through and see which ones are the best. And so that's what we did. I'm gonna break down how this is gonna work for you guys. This guitar collection is going to be based on the following criteria out of a possible 10 points. Playability, features, performance, value, condition, aesthetic, and sentiment, for a total possible 70 points. In between, we'll do some demoing, we'll tell some stories, we'll have some laughs, we'll tell some jokes, we'll cry a few tears. It's gonna be a good time. I can feel it. The instrument actually has to be a guitar, so we can't do any banjos or mandolins or ukuleles, but we will be doing bass guitars. All right, we've got 20 of these things to go through, so let's just jump into it with the worst guitar that I own. This thing is ass. This thing is ass. Literally the only reason I have this around is so that if I ever want to smash a guitar for a music video or a YouTube video, I have one to do it with. It's some generic Les Paul copy that was made by a company who didn't even have the balls to put a name on the headstock because they were so embarrassed by the thing. I bought this off a friend of mine in the 9th grade for $100 because I was obsessed with Tom Morello at the time, and you could do the crazy trick that he does with the toggle switch. And I mean, that worked for like a month before the switch broke on the thing and I never used it again. Ready to hear this thing plugged in? Spoiler alert, it doesn't make any sound. All right, time to get this thing out of here. On to the next one. This thing is also ass, but at least someone could learn to play on it. Long & McQuaid were about to throw this thing out that they had lying around for God knows what reason, and so I became the proud owner of this thing. If your very first car was a beat up 1999 Honda Civic, but you had never drove before, you might still be excited to drive, and so I keep this around for that reason. Maybe a friend of mine wants to learn how to play, who knows. Let's plug it in and actually hear it. Oh boy. Well, this thing literally got crappier over the course of this video. Yeet! Next! Well, I'm happy to say we're finally at that point in the video where guitars start making noise. You know, I remember this guitar being a lot worse than it actually is. Epiphone and Squier do a pretty good job of making entry-level stuff, and this is a prime example of that. A guitar like this brand new would probably cost around $200 or $300. I wouldn't buy it for any more than that, but it's a great learner guitar. So you can take a look at the scores. The main things to point out here are the value on this thing. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 because I really think the entry-level stuff from this company is really good. Where this thing lost marks with me is sentiment. I mean, it's been in a case for most of the time that I've owned it, which hasn't been that long, and I've not really gotten any use out of it. Not bad. My review of this is pretty much, it's a bass. There's not really too much more I can say about it than that, except for I bought it for $80. That's why I got it. I wanted to have another bass and another tuning, and I do. We'll get to that in just a bit. Again, Squier do good entry-level stuff. This is exactly that. I actually do a lot of recording with this bass, and it sounds okay on record, but there's just nothing special about it. Except for buying it for $80, oh yeah! It's so cute. Look, I just wanna, oh man, look, it's a tiny bass. It's a tiny bass, it's tiny hands. You got the tiny basses to play tiny bass songs. It's nice. This is an Ibanez Micro Geo bass. and it kicks ass. I bought it for $100 and I thought it would be fun to use for my band's live shows. We've only used it once live, but it was like a mermaid themed rave and it worked really well. The thing sounds surprisingly good for what it is. I'm surprised this thing landed above the Squier Jaguar, but when it comes down to it, just sounds decent when you plug it in. Let's try it out. Another Squier Jaguar? Yeah, 2 Squier Jaguars. I actually bought this one a long time ago and now leave it in C standard. I actually did a whole record tracking bass with this thing, and it sounds halfway decent. Better than the other Squier Jaguar, which just goes to show you, every instrument's different. Oh man, I love this thing. It was awesome. And I have to say was because over time it's ran into some major issues. That's why it didn't rank higher up on the list. This is the first electric guitar I ever purchased. This guitar took me from learning some of my first AC/DC riffs all the way up until I got into Dream Theater, prog metal, and all kinds of other guitar wankery. This guitar seemingly came back from the dead after 7 years of not even working, and suddenly I'm able to play it again. However, it's got some major fret issues, and so it kind of makes it obsolete for a lot of things I don't want to play. But we'll play some higher frets and get some good sound out of it. Here we have a Korean Fender Stratocaster with Seymour Duncans in it. Thing plays awesome and bought it for $125. Got no complaints in the world at that kind of price. I like to call this my everything but metal guitar. It's super bright, very versatile, and sounds great on record. Holy shit, this thing is a beast. This is my Ibanez 7620. It's the only 7-string that I own, and I've wanted a 7-string for about 15 years, and this is the most recently acquired guitar of mine. The playability score is super high. It's just a very comfortable instrument in your hands. Features are great on it. Features a Floyd Rose system with a 5-way selector switch for all sorts of different pickup combinations. Performance on this thing gets a 9 out of 10 because it just sounds monstrous. Rounding out the first half of this, we have my one and only nylon string guitar, which is a Yamaha G350DXZ, which I got
for free! This is sick!
I walked into work one day at Long & McQuaid and someone was trying to trade this in. We wouldn't accept it. It was disgusting. It looked like he had forgot to buy Kleenex, and so he used his guitar instead, and continued this trend for the next several years. The thing was so gross that the customer didn't even want to take it home with them, so I decided, you know what, I'll stick around after work and I'll see if I can spruce this thing up. The only thing that needed to get done was to have these new tuners put on it, but other than that, this thing actually is amazing. It took a couple hours of gross work to get it to work correctly, but a free guitar is a free guitar, and this is a good one. When I first saw this, it was in a 2 out of 10 condition, but now I would say that it's 9. It plays great. I've never had to set it up. When I come back to it, it's always still in tune. It's a really good instrument. Let's play a little. Okay, it's the next day, the camera's all charged up. Let's get into the top 10. Number 10 is... This is my Ibanez Premium. It's an example of a guitar that I bought for a really good deal, but not the best deal I've ever bought. Now, unfortunately, it's not the perfect guitar for me. As much as I love Ibanez, I just don't love the way that this one feels, but it does sound incredible, so I have used it on a number of recordings and live shows. However, I do still play it a lot. Let's check out how it sounds. Time for number 9. This is my favorite guitar that I own. It's story time. This guitar was gifted to me by my uncle when I was 14 years old. He saw that I was really dedicated to guitar at that point, and he had a small Taylor collection of his own. He decided to give this to me and told me to make sure that I always took really good care of it, and I did play this every day for many, many, many years. I had to learn the hard way that you really need to keep guitars humidified, so now if you run your fingernail over the top, you can feel the cracks. You can hear them right there. There actually used to be different electronics on this that we had to get pulled out because they short-circuited at one point. Thankfully, the guys along in McQuaid installed a custom rosewood block on the end with a Fishman system in it, and it actually sounds fantastic. Which kind of makes it a one-of-a-kind instrument. I mean, this thing is built for looping. Most Taylors will get body resonance feedback, and this one doesn't. It only picks up from the saddle, which means I can do the loop-de-loop, and it sounds good. This has been with me in Manchester, and in Israel, and in the US, and Montreal, and Vancouver. It's also been with me at Yonge and Dundas Square, and it's also been with me in the tiniest dingy clubs where I was only playing to the bartender and my dad. It's been through it all with me, and it's in beat up condition. By all merits, it shouldn't even work anymore, but it does. Seriously placed it above my Taylor? Alright, let me get myself back together here because I don't believe that my prized possession acoustic just got beat out by a half-size travel guitar that I paid $100 for. It looks like it might as well be an oar for a paddle boat. But the scores don't lie. This thing's really good. Good quality laminate wood, cutaway, and electronics on board. Means you can take it to any gig with you if you really needed a backup guitar, and you can even play lead on it because you can access all the frets on it. As far as a half-size travel guitar goes, there's nothing quite like it. Don't quote me on that. Number 7! Hey guitar nerds, do you want to be just like Steve Vai? Get yourself an RG350DXZ Pearl White, bitch! Alright, you want to talk guitars that surprised me the most during this? This is definitely one of them. I don't remember this guitar being as good as it is. But this was a guitar that I dreamed of owning for a long time, and one came my way for $200, so I picked it up. I don't have a lot of stories with this one because there have been far and few circumstances for me to use it. I leave it in D standard, but I did get to use it at the mod club one year. The tuning it is in D standard with a Floyd Rose system. That is a pain in the ass, but let's hear it. This one has a fun story to it. This is a Yamaha FSX315 as purchased for me by famed pot activist Mark Emery. So for those of you who aren't aware, pot is legal in Canada. There's no way you guys don't know that. Once upon a time, in a land with no legal marijuana, Toronto was just opening dispensaries anyways? And kind of one of the people that was at the forefront of that was pot activist Mark Emery and his brand Cannabis Culture, who decided that at their flagship location they would host an open mic, and I had the opportunity to be the host. I would never smoke during the show because it's not my thing to do that while I perform, but everyone else there did. It was awesome. And eventually, Mark Emery decided, we need a house guitar. So he sent me out with a small budget to Steve's Music, and I picked this guy up. And that was where I first learned that Yamaha are, in fact, the kings of doing mid-level stuff at a wicked price. As was the fate of all of these places, it got raided, it got shut down, and I really miss it. It was probably my favorite job I ever had. But I did get to keep the guitar. I like to leave this guitar in C standard. It makes a really deep sound. Let's hear it. Oh yeah. This is an Epiphone SG Custom Prophecy. This is something that I picked up for 220 bucks on a whim, and I ended up recording a whole record with it. I loved it so much. It's got active pickups in it, which means it's battery powered. It gives you a lot of output and is like screaming loud. All right, time to hear what this thing sounds like. I'm gonna play a couple riffs off my Luminil record that I recorded with this, and you can find the whole thing on my YouTube page. Number 4 is the guild that I bought off a homeless guy on the subway for 60 bucks. About 5 or 6 years ago, when I was on my way home from a show, I ran into this guy on the subway who was playing the guitar, some scraggly looking guy, and I sat down beside him and I opened up my guitar case and we jammed on the subway. And I was asking him about the guitar that he had, and he told me that he was actually trying to sell it at a pawn shop and he couldn't even get 60 bucks for it. And he was getting off at the next stop when he said, you know what, if you have 60 bucks on you right now, I'll sell it to you. I took 60 bucks out of my pocket, handed it to him. He gave me the guitar. He walked off. And this thing was messed up. It was not in good shape. When I got home, I spent, I kid you not, 4 hours staying up till 5 in the morning just cleaning it. But ever since, it's been pretty nice. It's got a little bit of fret issues, but for the most part, this thing is wicked. It sounds good, it plays well, and I even got a piezo system set up in it so that I could drum on the body and do live looping with it. So, let's hear it. This thing. Yeah, it's weird. So one day along in McQuaid, our former guitar technician sent me down an internet rabbit hole looking up these guitars that are knockoffs of another company named Strandberg, made by a company called NK. There's no information on this company. The only thing you can find are good reviews. In fact, I messaged the company a whole list of questions and they wrote back, yikes. After obsessing over this for like a week, I decided to just buckle down and see if I could order one. I spent 500 bucks flat. It came in the mail a couple weeks later, and holy crap. Okay, ready?
Yeah. Oh, it's so tiny.
It's fucking
oh.
tiny. Oh, yeah.
Oh boy.
There it is.
Look at the neck. The back of the neck.
Yeah.
Oh boy. This actually looks really, really good.
This is one of the most playable guitars I have. Everywhere on the guitar feels incredible and it sounds great wherever you play. Feels good in your hands, the shape of it is very comfortable, the aesthetic is wild. I love the way that this thing looks like it's a space rock that just fell into our planet and someone made a guitar out of it. The blue maple neck is something I've never seen on another guitar before. And we actually went ahead and changed the pickups, the knobs on it, and just made it a beast of an instrument. I already talked about how my uncle gave me a Taylor on my 14th birthday. Well, this past summer he did it again on my 28th birthday. This is one that he picked up in the late 90s and never really touched that much, but he always kept really good care of it. After all that time, the neck had warped around quite a bit, so I did have to have it shipped off to a luthier in order to have the neck reset on it. But after that, this thing has become a monster of a guitar. Now, because it's a 12-string, the applications are a little bit limited, so I haven't really found any use for it for a recording yet. So we're going to do our first recording right now. Alright, this is it. It's time for the number one guitar, and this might be the only one that didn't surprise me. I can't say enough good things about this guitar. It sounds perfect, it feels perfect, and it's been with me through a lot. I bought this off Craigslist from someone so that they could afford to feed their daughter. Here's the story. I had been dreaming about owning one of these guitars for more than half a decade because it's the signature guitar of my favorite guitar player, John Petrucci. These guitars that can sell for up to $3,000 was being sold by someone on Craigslist for $1,000, which is mainly because it's missing a switch up here, which lets it sound like an acoustic guitar. Other models have it, but I'm good. I've got acoustic guitars. I don't need it. Eventually, we agreed on the price of $900 and decided to meet up at Long & McQuaid to do the transaction, which is now where I work. Which is now where I would condemn exactly what I did. Anyways, he sold this to me not because he wanted to, but he had a 6-week-old baby and he needed the money. Her name is Maya, and I ended up writing a song for her called Maya Dreamer that I then sent to him after I had recorded it, and it ended up on my first EP. Aww. Other than the way the guitar feels, probably my favorite part about it is that even though there's only 3 pickup positions, it's so distinctive that it almost sounds like there's 3 different guitars in one. Thank you for joining me down this little trip on memory lane, looking at all these guitars. Hopefully it's inspired you to pick up yours, and if you haven't in a long time, maybe it's a good time for you to start. If you want to see some more content from me, feel free to hit that subscribe button, smash that like, slap that like, do whatever you can to that whatever you want, you know, do the thing. And until next time, take it easy.